Greetings. Welcome to our new series on silk reeling. This is my favorite Tai Chi exercise, bar none, because I think it embodies the best aspects of Tai Chi in that conceptually it's really simple. Philosophically, it is very deep. And in terms of the kinds of exploration and personal expression you get to do with it is endless. There is a number of practices called silk reeling from different styles of Tai Chi. Different teachers have their own versions of it. I've come across several of them over the years, not all of them, I'm sure. But the one I keep coming back to over and over and over again comes from the series of exercises in Master Zhou Sunghua's book, The Tao of Tai Chi Chuan, Way of Rejuvenation. I highly recommend this book. It was one of the foundational texts that I learned from. It was a first edition copy, was on my Sifu's library at the studio, and I borrowed it many, many times. Read through it many, many times. I've owned several copies, given them away, bought more copies of it. From what I understand, there's even an anniversary edition coming out now, which I might pick up. I don't know, just, for fun. Chapter 3, Foundations, I think is possibly the best chapter for anyone getting into Tai Chi in any style. For this start to our series, we need to cover off a couple of definitions, just set some ground rules, and start working on a little bit of mobility that is going to pave the way for exploration of silk reeling. Number one, what is silk reeling or reeling silk, depending on how you want to translate it? I have been told, I have never actually done it myself, I have been told that to get a silk thread, you need to pull it out of a silkworm's butt. And you need to pull that thread at a constant, steady pace. If you are pulling the thread from the silkworm's butt and you pull a little bit faster, then the silk thread gets a little bit thinner. If you pull a little bit slower, then the silk thread gets a little bit fatter. And having a thread that is going from thick to thin to middle, thin, thick, blah, 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 and gets all lumpy is not the kind of silk that apparently makes really fine silk. So you want to be able to move this thing at a constant speed, unending, unbroken. Therefore, any kind of exercise that you are moving at a constant pace, never starting, never stopping, never slowing down, never speeding up, could be classified as silk reeling. The other thing I'm told about pulling a silk thread out of a worm's butt is as you pull the thread, the worm or the cocoon that the worm is in spins and rotates. And it spins basically according to the speed of which you are pulling. So the faster you pull, the faster it spins. The slower you pull, the slower it spins. I have no idea if this is true. Strangely, they don't make a lot of nature documentaries about that, or at least none that I've seen. Therefore, when we are looking at silk reeling, in addition to a constant speed being expressed and being one of our goals, we are also looking for a coiling or rotating energy. So we're trying to combine those two things together into a practice. And the way we do that with silk reeling is starting out extremely simple by drawing imaginary circles in the air. Now, to draw our imaginary circles in the air throughout this series, we're going to have to cover off a couple of definitions and just set some common language for it. And I apologize if this flashes back to bad memories of math class, but it's really the best way I know and the simplest way I know to explain this stuff. In math class, if you had a graph, the line that went horizontal was your x-axis, right? The horizontal line is X. The vertical line was Y. And the line that goes straight forward and back was the Z axis or Z axis. So X, Y, Z. And we're going to use those to reference our circles on the various different planes all around us. We can see here on the ground, I've got an X there as well. This one here, because it is flat on the ground, happens on the X axis and it goes forward and back. Therefore, it is the Z axis. So anything that takes place on the floor in terms of a circle is an XZ axis. Anything that is happening in front of us, like we are looking at a wall or a TV or something like that, because it is on the X axis and the Y axis in front of us, it happens on that plane. This is the XY axis where we're going to be drawing our circles. Typically speaking, from Joe Songwa's book and his reference materials and the way I've seen many teachers teach this, is they start off on the XY axis in front of us because it's somewhat easy to visualize. However, there might be some mobility challenges in it, in the particular student. It is a little more taxing than starting out on a couple of the other axes, which don't get covered nearly as often. In my experience teaching, and that is generally with more senior, more mobility challenged people, starting off on this axis here beside us, like the wall plane, if you're into those sorts of arts, which would be our Y-axis going up and down, and our Z-axis going front and back, so our YZ axis, drawing a circle there is a lot easier and helps in gaining the shoulder mobility that we are going to need to move this onto other planes. To demonstrate this, I'm going to turn 90 degrees. Doesn't really matter what side I turn to. However, 90 degrees, I'm going to take this arm and I'm going to put it out palm up directly towards the camera. So this is facing 90 degrees away from me. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to rotate my arm and my palm to the back, to the top, to the side, and down. To the side, to the top, to the side, and back down. Drawing a full circle. Oops, left the camera frame there. Gotta be a little more careful. Well, there we go. That's our first very simple circle. Things to note about it is my palm is always facing the middle of the imaginary circle. So, when my palm is up, my hand is down. When my palm is to the side, my palm faces into the circle. When my hand is up, my palm faces down into the circle. Side, palm faces into the circle. Palm faces up into the circle. Inside, 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 inside. So that's my circle. Right there, nice and smooth. So this is my YZ axis circle. And the goal with this is simply, one, start gaining a little bit of this mobility. Most people are going to find it pretty easy to stick their palm up here on the side. You might find this a little bit challenging because you got to open up across the front of the chest here to get your arm back. Usually up here, not so bad. When we start sort of chicken winging ourselves here and our palms facing there, this is where the mobility challenges are really going to start, especially as we start rotating the shoulder and dropping it so our palm faces up at that bottom position. So this here is usually the trouble spot. And if you are having trouble with it, just go as far as you are slightly uncomfortable. That's always the gold standard we're going for. We always want to get to the slightly uncomfortable. Okay, and then back out of it. Go around again. Yeah, that's about as far as I go. Fine, back out. And wherever you hit those trouble spots, just sort of lightly nudge up against them. Use this motion to smooth out the kinks. That is our end goal with this, is just nice and smooth. And if we can combine our breathing with it, even better. We breathe in on the way up and out on the way down. Breathing in on the way up and out on the way down. In on the way up and out on the way down. That's our first circle that we're going to start working with. Our second circle that we're going to start working with is happening on this flat horizontal plane. So horizontal means x-axis, and it is happening front to back. We are creating a circle this way. So front to back is the z-axis. So this would be our z and x-axis. And we can think of this circle as wiping a table. I also like to describe this as stirring a bath. You know, if you've made it too hot and you got to add some cold water, you can dump that in there and you stir it all around. And what we're going to do is we're going to start combining two distinct movements. And when we were on our side here, we were pretty much just working with the shoulder joint, getting that a little more fluid and loose. We're going to simplify our arm movement on this one quite dramatically. I'm going to start with my palm up in front of my belly. And as I bring it forward on the Z axis, my hand rotates over to palm down. And then I bring it back, scooping up to palm up. Palm out and palm up. So this is just moving on the Z axis. I breathe in on the way out and I breathe out on the way back in. That gives us one plane of movement. Now, to cover our x-axis of movement, I'm actually not going to involve my arm whatsoever. My arm, I just want to do this with it. That's the only thing I want to do. I want to keep it on my center line. So I'm actually going to put it behind me for right now. And if you've been following any of our movement basics or movement vocabulary, this will seem very familiar to you. This is our side-to-side twist originating from the hips. From the hips, I can rotate about 45 degrees to one corner, come back into the center, and I can rotate about 45 degrees to the other corner and back into the center. Very important that this motion is coming from the hips. And I'm getting movement in the ball and socket joint of my hips. It is, if you stick your leg out, it is literally this motion that pulls your toes in and out, like so. That is what I am doing inside my hips to create that side-to-side motion. one side, other side, one side, and the other side. We can also accomplish a twist by leaving our hips fixed in place forward and twisting through the waist. That also gives me about 45 to one side and about 45 to the other. Very important that we are able to do both of those, and we are able to distinguish the two of those and use them freely. Now, if I were to combine both of them, I could say, start with my hips, go 45, then twist with the waist and get myself almost a 90. Undo the waist, 45, undo the hips, hips, waist, waist, hips. Or even better still, run them both at the same time, twisting the hips and the waist, so they all arrive at the same point together. The biggest difference between these two modes of movement is when I twist from my hips, 45 degrees to either side, my shoulders are remaining stacked on tops of my hips, i.e. their relative positions do not change. As my hips move, my shoulders go with it. Whereas when I twist through the waist, my shoulders move independently of my hips. So now my shoulder is out of line with this hip. Bring it back into line. If I move the hips over, my shoulder is now still in line with my hips. For our practice in silk reeling here, we really want to focus on the hip movement and not the waist movement for the time being. We're going to keep it super simple right now. What we need to do is we need to bring our hand, palm up, and as we start to move it forward, we're going to twist through the hip, and when my hip is at about 45 degrees, now facing off to the corner, my palm should be facing into the center of a circle. As I undo that twist and keep moving my hand forward till it's palm down, I'm now at the far side of that circle. I can keep going with my circle, rotate, palm out, palm in. 45 degrees, palm out, straighten back up, palm down. 45 degrees, palm out, 45 degrees, back to straight, palm up. So here is where I start to get a circular motion. This being my XZ axis circle. And this of course goes the other direction as well. So you're going to lead with the fingers. I kind of think that's like clearing a table. There we go. Combining two separate, distinct individual movements and timing them together, two very linear movements, essentially, out and in, and side to side, gives us our circles. And our final axis to cover off is the TV plane, or our XY axis. This is where we're going to require not only that hip movement, but the waist movement, and hopefully all of the mobility gains we have gotten from our shoulder movement out to the side on our YZ plane. To do this, we're going to just imagine the circle in front of us. And we start with the palm up, exactly as if we were doing our XZ axis. And what I need to do here is I'm going to lift my palm up to the top and then back down and up and back down. Again, keeping my palm facing into the center of the circle. The way I get my left right is the same way as on our clearing the table axis, is by rotating through the hip. So I get my palm facing into the side here. Undo that rotation. My palm faces up to the top. Keep rotating through the hip to get to the side. Now, to get to the bottom, I need to fully rotate through my waist as well to get twisted. Then I undo that twist. Coming back to the top, nice and square. To the side and to the bottom. So, hip, undo. Now waist and hip work together to give me a full twist. Undo waist and hip. Hip, hip. So our side-to-side movement is taking place. Hips to this side, hips back to the center, and then hips and waist together to get you all the way around to the side. Undo hips and waist, hips, and back to the center. Do this on both sides. Hip, hip, hips and waist start to go all the way around. Undo that. And back. This is going to require a lot of waist and hip flexibility to get all the way around. Don't expect to be able to do this right away. It is going to take time. The most important thing you can check for, and if you can't, if you don't have someone there checking this for you, film yourself doing it and really scrutinize your knees and where they are. It is extremely easy in trying to get ourselves twisted and torqued all the way around to compromise our knees. I highly recommend going back and watching the Movement Vocabulary series if you haven't already, as I harp on about this. We always want our knees tracking directly over our toes. Getting flexibility through the waist and through the hips together allows our knees to keep moving straight front and back. But if we lack that mobility and we try and twist, and this is about as far as we can get, combined waist and hip, but I really want to try and get more out of it, what I'm going to tend to do is I'm going to tend to compromise my knees and roll things here and try and pull myself around. And then I undo it, and I look at myself in the mirror and I go, oh yeah, my knees are fine, right? Then I go to the other side, I pull myself around, and then I come back and I'm like, oh yeah, that's fine. So if you possibly can, film yourself doing it. Make sure your knees are tracking straight in line. If you can't make it the full distance, don't worry about it. Just that's as far as you're going for right now. Just keep bumping up against those edges, keep working it, and eventually over time, set a long-term goal on this. And I don't expect to get it in a week or 2 or 30 days, anything like that. Tai Chi really responds best to long, slow, methodical, daily practice. So do a little bit each day is far better than trying to do a lot, and especially a lot in a compromising way in a short period of time. So if you are doing your circles here, and that's as far as you can make it, fine. Maybe in a week, you get to there. Maybe in 3 weeks, you're there. 6 weeks. And maybe it takes you 4 months to get all the way around. Fine. What are you in a hurry for? This is Tai Chi. Everything happens slow. And the slower you attempt to do it, the faster you will see results. Which still takes a long time, but you know, it's faster than breaking stuff along the way. I hope that gave you a little bit of an intro to silk reeling, or as I like to break down the planes anyways. Remember, x-axis, y-axis, z-axis. We're going to be using that a lot to refer to where our circles are going. Coordinate it with your breathing if you can. We're going to get into more details about that. Make circles. Generally speaking, keep your palm facing into the center. And if all else fails, run yourself a hot bath and swirl some water in there. You'll get it. Thank you for joining me. Take care.